Good morning. Okay, so let's hope you get to hear from that lady she just talked about. Okay, God is good. Well, today's title and I'd also like to say I have been married to this fine man by the name of Alvin Riley. He gave me my name, and we have 3 children who all are grown up and they live on their own. Can somebody say that's a good thing? So, today, title The Call I Never Knew I Would Answer. Growing up, you often heard people say, teachers don't make any money. Didn't matter to me because I wasn't going to be one. I had dreams of becoming a lawyer. I could argue with the best of them. But once I realized it would take an additional 7 years of education, I quickly changed my mind. So I followed that love, math, and the budding interest that I had in computer science. What I didn't realize then was that I had already been studying something greater. The call I had through it, the call. I had been taking notes, not just in notebooks, but in life, from the incredible educators who had shaped me. Miss Fry, my 9th grade Algebra 1 teacher. She would take so long to do algebra problems. Why does it take 7 steps, Miss Fry? I just did it in 3. You're absolutely right, Cheryl, but if you don't follow my directions, you're going to get a 0. That lesson stayed with me. There is a way, there's my way, but then there's the way. Then there's Miss Norwood, my 5th grade teacher. Miss Norwood would have us to come up to her desk, and we would have to say our multiplication tables, 1 times 1, all the way up to 12 times 12. And if you missed it, you had to start over. From her, I learned the importance of excellence and foundation. Miss Wall, my 2nd grade teacher, showed me something even deeper. When I came to school with a worn out pair of shoes, she made sure I received a brand new pair. From her, I learned that care and compassion change lives. Mr. Montgomery, and for him, I have to say Mr. John Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery had been in an accident and was in a wheelchair. He had taught my brother previously, and you hate to get a teacher who knows your older sibling because comparison is going to happen. Cheryl, I had Thomas, and I know the expectations of the Cunningham family. I expect greatness, and you will write this paper, and I expect to see it, and if you don't do it right, you're going to do it over. So guess what? We did it right. Then there was Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis taught me U.S. history. But with him, it wasn't just history where he's standing up talking. What he had us do was to write historical fictions. But our historical fictions had to be historically accurate. And so whether it was someone in Jamestown, Virginia, or off the coast of Wilmington, we had to make sure that we told the story exactly like it unfolded in history. From him, I learned that creativity and rigor could coexist. Then there came Dr. Powles. Now, this has nothing to do with my high school geometry teacher because somebody learned from her. I didn't. When I got to college, there was Dr. Powles. Dr. Powles taught me that geometry could make sense. Who needs it and who cares? Well, I began to care, and the person who hated geometry somehow became a geometry teacher. Figure that. And then there was Dr. Paybor, who taught me a lesson I will never forget. I accidentally saw his grade book. It was his first year teaching linear algebra while I was in college. And he made the mistake of having his grade book open. Now, I had gotten a C. I earned a C. However, my 74 had a C beside it, and I also saw other folks whose 40 and 50 had a C beside it. So we had to ponder here. I said, now, Dr. Paybor, I understand I made a C. And you can give me my C if they don't get a C. But they can't get a C, and their grade is 30 points, 20 points lower than mine, and I still get a C. Well, you know, I knew professor. I can't make any ruffles. Well, you about to ruffle. And so what I will tell you is that I did not get a C, though I earned one, but I just felt that that was fair, okay? Now, the last one. This is a giant of a man, and did you go to Quail Hollow?
I went to Carmel.
You went to Carmel. You were on the other side of the street. Okay. Well, let me tell you. Just in February of this year, we lost a giant of a man by the name of Charlie Smith Danley. Mr. Danley was my junior high teacher, and he was one of the first educators to integrate public school education in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I was at Quail Hollow Junior High, and he taught me a lesson that you'll never see in any book. We were bused into Quail Hollow, and there was a day when children were being children on the bus, and the bus driver had to bring the bus back to school. Now, if you know Mr. Danley, he was always sharp. I never heard him yell, but when he spoke, he was like E.F. Hutton. For those of you who are younger than 9, like E.F. Hutton, okay. Anyway, he got on the bus and he told us this story about some chocolate milk and an aspirin, and how an aspirin dissolves in chocolate milk. But then if you had some buttermilk and you had a fly, that fly would keep sticking out. And so he taught us what representation looked like, because everybody wants to be represented properly, but you got to represent properly. And so he told us that when you go out in the world, you got to represent yourself properly, the people who you belong to, and this school says Quail Hollow. So what you will not do is misrepresent Quail Hollow. But Mr. Danley didn't stop there. When my children, I have 3 children, 2 young men, all 3 of them paged in the NC State House. He was a state senator, and as a state senator, he sponsored my 2 sons. And so he wrote the letter, and they would go in, and I still have pictures of him with them. And then in 2020, it was the 100th year anniversary of Blacks being in education. Public education, black education in Charlotte. And so we, along with about 5 other schools, did a project with someone who was doing their doctoral thesis. And while we were doing that, we had those segregation years. So we had like from 70 to like 2000. Well, Mr. Danley was in there. So we talked to quite a few people who had been there, but Mr. Danley, in the middle of the pandemic, had my students come to his house. He sat on the porch and he told them his story. Bless my socks off. And out of all the people, and I'm not going to name the people who he interviewed, who all they interviewed, because they love Mr. Danley the best, okay? And I don't want them to feel any kind of way. But he interviewed them, talked with them, shared their story. That was like, man, he was the bomb leader, and still was. That was at 97. In 2024, he would periodically text me. Yeah, at 97 he was texting. Let's just see on that. Let's just think about that. He was texting in 1994. In 2024. And so he would periodically text me and tell me he was proud of me, blah, 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 blah. But in 2024, I received a birthday invitation. Mr. Danley was turning 100 years old. And I'm standing beside him, and I say, hey, Mr. Danley, this is Cheryl Cunningham. I know you. But the fact that he saw me, he knew me, and he was still impacting lives. And this has nothing to do with education, but if anybody remember the Excelsior Club? Every now and then, every 3 or 4 months, it comes back on the TV, and they're talking about how they're going to renovate. They got new plans for it, about like Eastland Mall. Anyway. So they had a chair at the Excelsior Club that was his throne. And everybody knew, don't sit on it, because that was his chair. But that was a giant of a man that he was. And so just like he says, I know you, Cheryl. I remember you. There are so many students that are remembering you and the impact that you have had on their lives. And so I'm here to tell you, as your TFI teaching fellow best friend, that we appreciate you. We honor you. Thank you so much for the lives that you've changed, for the individuals that you've impacted. And I got notes here. I don't forget where I am now because I'm, you know, but want you to know that you are no longer you're teaching more than content. You are planting seeds. You are shaping character. You are modeling excellence. You are offering hope. You are building foundations that will outlive you. Who's that Mr. Danley for you? Who's that Mrs. Fry? That Miss Norwood who is making you do it over again? Thank you for saying yes to your call. And even more, thank you for choosing to stay. Education has changed, children has changed, but you are still saying yes and getting up every day. So happy appreciation. And I want you to know that you're special to TFI, but I'm here to tell you, your children are taking notes, and they are appreciative for your for the call that you're walking in. And I often call that little boy. You know, everybody has that little Johnny in his class that get on your nerve. Johnny even appreciates you. You don't know it yet, but Johnny appreciates you. So Johnny was the reason why you were called. But you were also called for Mary, who sits in the front of the class, does her homework every day, don't bother nobody. So I say to you, thank you. We appreciate you.
Good afternoon, fellows. I don't know who she was talking about, but I guess that's me. So she did convince me to create this poem, yes, for you all. So it was written for you by me, and I hope you enjoy it. It is called Where Worlds Meet. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like the air had been saving a seat for you? As if someone took the words thank you and gave them legs, gave them warm hands, gave them a mic. Because teachers, they don't arrive empty. We carry whole buildings on our backs with data, deadlines, devices that won't connect, dining room tables turned into grading stations, and a copier that acts like it's on strike. We carry lesson plans, late nights, and lived experiences. We carry kids who need more than content. They need consistency. They need somebody who stays. So when TFI says, come in, it doesn't feel like an Evite. It feels like relief, like an exhale I forgot I was holding. TFI is that sanctuary made of everyday people. It honors teachers out loud, not with cute little hashtags, but with the kind of recognition that lands on your chest, reminding you you are not invisible. That is, before Monday comes back acting all brand new. So let me keep this plain. TFI doesn't just clap for teachers, it builds teachers, not with fluffy speeches, with real investment, with rooms where educators aren't reduced to numbers, where your name is not an afterthought, where your work is spoken like it's sacred, because it is. TFI Fellows brings us together, a living library of excellence, so we can trade strategies like recipes and tell the truth without shrinking to make other people feel comfortable. At TFI, you don't have to translate your exhaustion or defend your joy. You can just say, I'm tired. And nobody tries to fix you with some little cute quote. They hand you community, because teachers don't leave because we stop caring. They leave because caring gets expensive when nobody refills the well. But TFI, you refill our well. Sometimes it's leadership development that sends you back into your building with your spine a little straighter, your voice a little steadier. Sometimes it's access. Doors you didn't know you were allowed to knock on. Tables you didn't know you had a seat with your name already printed. Sometimes it's a reminder you are not just a teacher, but an architect of outcomes, a first responder to feelings, a builder of belonging. And I feel that in my core because I taught under more than one sky. I lived where the sand dunes and the Indian Ocean met, where the day begins and moves to rhythms older than the bells, where language can build, where language can be a bridge or a wall. So I learned to teach with my ears first, listening for the doors inside the sentence. I learned belonging is a lesson. I learned children carry their ancestors like they were born with extra hands. So when I step into a TFI space, I don't just show up as a teacher. I show up as a passport stamped with survival and the kind of hope you can actually use. Now back home, I've seen what partnership looks like when it's authentic, collaborating with Charlotte Country Day, watching what happens when resources move with intention, when community becomes a verb because TFI transforms community into a verb. As a media coordinator in a Title I school, I'm building possibilities in a vintage space. It's 100 years old. Holding stories like lanterns, launching human libraries, living stories, living proof that voice matters. I'm creating low-tech makerspace moments with maximum imagination, teaching kids, you don't need more, you need belief, tools, or somebody just to say, try again, I'm still here. TFI is that somebody for teachers. So if you hear anything else today, hear this. TFI is where worlds meet. Our global lens, our classroom grit, to my librarian heart and to my poet truth. And yes, TFI, we do celebrate us. Not because teachers need a party, but because teachers deserve to be witnessed. A luncheon isn't merely a meal. It's the moment where the city pauses long enough to say, we see you. We need you. We're grateful you stayed, and that matters because celebration is fuel. So when we walk out there, out here, we don't walk out lighter because the work got easier. We walk out lighter because we are not carrying this thing alone. TFI doesn't just give us a spotlight. It gives us the spark to keep going. And let me tell you, we always, always leave lit.